That's right. Welcome and welcome back, folks, to just how much of a new head coach learning curve is our new friend Marcus Freeman facing edition of the Always Irish Show. As always, you can find the program on YouTube. Do it, subscribe if you haven't yet. Appreciate it very much. Give the video a thumbs up if you approve of the content. Appreciate that as well. Notifications on. You'll be alerted every time there's a new episode. Twitter, search bar Always Irish Rat. Always Irish Inc. Emails, alwaysirishnd@gmail.com. Audio only, anywhere you want me. You could get me call-in line 312-900-8815. Thank you for being here, everybody. We went over very recently 5 really positive changes that I think are realistic, that I want to see Marcus Freeman instill in the new Notre Dame football era program. Now it's only fair that I look a little bit at the flip side of all those positives I think he could realistically instill as soon as week 1, game 1 this year. Those changes. And I don't honestly think enough Notre Dame fans want to think about this angle, or just for whatever reason have not considered it much at all, given it much thought. So much of our attention is based on recruiting, talent acquisition, and development, and all for good reason. I want to take a minute and talk about some of the new coach struggles Marcus may face. And being able to name some of the challenges a brand new head coach might face is one thing. But talking about how those challenges manifest themselves in actual ball games, especially early on, like the first half of the year, is a very interesting discussion and debate. All right, so let's get into this. Number 1, pressure. Pressure, pressure, pressure. I am certain Marcus Freeman can handle it, but it's a lot. It's a lot. You're not opening against a nobody at home where you could relax, the crowd's with you, everybody loves you, you have a big margin for error against a lower level team. You could get that first Notre Dame win under your belt, and then keep it moving. No, that's just not how this all shaped out. That's not going to be Marcus Freeman's official introduction into head coaching. It's vastly different when it's your alma mater, a top 3 program, a rabid fan base. Rabid. And I mean that like over the top love football, and I mean that half their fans, I think, have rabies. So when I say rabid, I mean rabid. Okay, in every sense of the word. You just got the Notre Dame job. It's prime time. You're going where you used to play, but now they don't like you. It's Notre Dame. Everybody expects the world. 3 hardest jobs in America: president, Notre Dame head coach, Yankees manager. They've always said that, right? I've said being the Notre Dame head coach ages you worse than presidents. You always see those photos when they take office, and then when they leave, it's been 4 years or 8 years, but they've aged 30, right? So, pressure. I know Marcus is good at this, but pressure's pressure, and everybody has to deal with it till you're in that moment. You don't know how you're going to react. He was kind of in that moment in the bowl game, but this is different. This is different. Back then, it was gray area. Kelly's gone, but it was all his guys, his staff in the bowl game. Now it's different. This is all you, Marcus. It's all you. So pressure's one of them. Time management. Time management could make or break you. Is that a learned feel over decades of coaching and experience and seeing things play out? Is it more analytical on what the numbers say? Is it an acquired style? Is it a blend? I don't know. Time management. I don't know. But I'm asking, is that something that has to be worked through here? And what does it look like as it's being? The other thing is, here's what else I hope Marcus does. Kelly didn't. Always defer. Always defer. If you win the toss, defer. I much prefer that free possession to start that second half. You can maybe double dip to end the first half. I like the idea of deferring, knowing how much we like our defense, deferring, giving them the ball, getting a 3 and out. We get the ball back, and then we have that extra possession out of the half. I love that. Early on in ball games, a lot of times offenses ease into what they're doing, kick it to them, get off the field, get it back, gain that possession. I would never accept unless I maybe had like Alabama or Ohio State's offense, I guess. If I had a great offense and I knew we were going to go down and score right away, then I'd take the ball. Notre Dame's never in that position. In the biggest moments, you might be able to do it against nobodies. I'm talking about the big games, the big boys. So that's a side note. I would always defer. Game flow. Again, that game flow. When to push it, when to pull back, when to slow down. This part of the game was rocky in the bowl game. Did you score too fast? How do you navigate all that game flow in the moment? Again, is that a learned feel? Is that something he just inherently knows instinctually what he wants to do? I don't know. 2 pointers. What does the math say? Are you going off instinct? When to do it? When not to do it? Patience with players making mistakes. How long of a leash do guys have? How short of a leash do other guys have, and why? How about when to go for it on 4th down versus when to kick? If Notre Dame's long kicking game isn't as solid this year, then that changes your calculation. You're going to have to make some decisions that on this drive or that drive, you have 4 downs to play with, know it, and build your plays accommodating for it. All of that. Micromanage versus back off in games. I felt like Marcus kind of had a hard time figuring out what exactly he was supposed to be doing in that bowl game. Who am I supposed to be working with or talking to? Not like he did look a little bit like I am not exactly sure where I would be best suited inserting myself here kind of deal. So how do you micromanage versus back off and all those kind of management skill things in the game, in the moment? Proper motivation. You got to make sure it's the Lou Holtz thing. You got to make sure it's your job as the head coach to make sure you have your guys in a place where they're ready to compete every single week in their minds. Yeah, a lot of it comes down to team leadership and players. The head coach is responsible, ultimately, for getting the collective group's mind space in an area where they could compete. Media obligations. It's all been gravy so far because most of the news, aside from a couple recruiting issues, have been all positive. It's all gravy in the media so far. How does this change when he loses a game? How does this change if he loses a game he wasn't supposed to lose? If you happen to lose one to Ohio State, that's different than losing one to a team you have way more talent than. How does Marcus navigate that messaging in the media room to his players in the locker room? See, these are all really hard things to learn in the midst of a chaotic college football season. This stuff would be hard for anybody to learn, let alone a guy in his 30s and his first job is Notre Dame. He's got to learn to take on what he could take on, delegate the rest so that 2 things. One is he doesn't burn out mentally or physically, but more practically, number 2, I want to make sure that Marcus's personality and the hours that he has for that are being maximized where you get the most output on the back end. So whether that's recruiting or whatever, I want to make sure the hours he does have are leveraged maximally. So he's going to have to navigate. How much do I have to take on versus delegate? And there's going to be a calibration and a feeling out period. There is. So what I think Marcus should do is rely on guys who've been around the block. Call Lou Holtz in Florida if you need some advice on the pressures of being a new coach at Notre Dame and getting to the promised land. Nobody would know more than Lou. Nobody would know more than Lou about all that, what that feels like at Notre Dame, what that looks like at Notre Dame, how that translates day to day at Notre Dame. But Marcus should rely on guys who've been through a lot of these wars. Al Golden's seen it all. Harry's seen a lot of locker rooms, good, bad, and ugly. Tommy has the pulse of the younger Notre Dame guys because he was one. Embrace that knowledge. Embrace what those guys could do for you. I hope Marcus goes to them with stuff and as an open door policy where they could go to him and say, I really think we need to talk about how we're doing this or how we're doing that. Or maybe there's a more efficient way to do this. Whatever. There's a lot to navigate all at once. My question here is, what kind of realistic learning curve is this going to be? And more importantly, how does it translate? We need to figure out a way where, as Marcus is learning some of these things and how to navigate them in the game live, we got to figure out a way to be able to win those games and learn some lessons, have it be learning moments for Marcus how to navigate stuff in wins, not losses. And then the media is all focused on Marcus's decision. Why'd you do this? Why'd you do that? He comes out and says, upon reflection, I should have chose this instead of that. I'll keep that in mind. You need to figure it out where the mistakes he does make as a new coach, and there are going to be some because everybody has some. Nobody is exempt to paying your dues as a head coach. There are certain struggles they all have, and you just got to pay your dues. I need those dues to be paid in wins and not losses. That's what I need. So Marcus will calibrate. He'll figure this out, but there are going to be speed bumps. Nobody's immune to it. You got to pay your dues. But I still think if anybody's built to navigate this, it's somebody with Marcus's personality. So as we get into the season and it's all about recruiting and talent and development of the players, Notre Dame folks, keep in mind the massive undertaking it is for Marcus Freeman right now. All the responsibilities and all you have to be to everybody in Notre Dame land. It's a lot, and we're going to support him, and we're going to win a lot of ball games. Let's go. Talk to you soon.